So I will be basically talking about the technique of mebography and its clinical interpretation. So coming to the structure of meibomian glands. So as we know, these are linear vertically oriented glands, which are about 3 to 4 millimeter in its size. These are longer in the upper lid as compared to the lower lid, and they extend from the lid margin to the opposite margin of tarsus. They are perpendicular and they are present in the posterior lamella of the lids. It's a tubular acinate structure. So if you can see here, these are the acini, the blue are the acini, which secrete the lipid containing substance, that is mebum. This is secreted into the ductules, and these ductules connect to the main duct, which in turn then drains onto the ocular surface through the meibomian gland openings. So the importance of meibomian gland is that it secretes the lipids, which forms a very important component of the tear film, and it helps us achieve a good tear stability, and it also helps improve the tear breakup time, and hence maintains a very healthy ocular surface. So the video you can see, the top one is a lipid interferometry, and the down one was the NIBOT, which you can record on any of the topographer. So coming to meibography, it is a non-invasive imaging of the meibomian glands done in vivo. It allows us the gross as well as the microscopic examination of meibomian glands. So how does it work is that the mebum, which is secreted in the acini and the ductules, these scatter the infrared light, which is used in the infrared meibography, and hence cause the meibomian glands to appear opaque and white in the meibography images. Now, the extent of the whitening that you see depends upon the amount of light scattering, and this also depends upon the nature of the lipid droplets. So if you have small lipid droplets in the acini and the ductules, the light scattering will be more, and hence you will see the glands to be more prominent as compared to in the areas where there are large lipid droplets or there are no lipid droplets, which would appear as dark areas on meibography. There are two techniques of meibography. The older one is the contact meibography, where a direct application of a light probe is done to the skin of the eyelids. This helps in everting the eyelid, as well as it trans-illuminates the eyelid, and hence we can capture the images of the meibomian glands. Here, the meibomian glands appear as dark structures as compared to the indirect meibography, where it appears as white. Now, this technique was not so comfortable because the patients are not very comfortable and it's more time consuming. So what came into picture was a non-contact type of meibography, which was introduced in 2008 by Arita et al. So the first one was used in combination with slit lamp bimicroscope, where an IR camera and the was used to capture the images. Now, this technique is faster, it's easier to use, it's more patient-friendly, and one can view a larger surface area of the everted eyelids and hence be required to capture fewer images. There are a variety of machines which one can use to capture. It needs to have the IR camera. So any autorefractometer which has an IR imaging can capture can give you a meibography, or a topographer like a Sirius or an Oculus, or a slit lamp based. Or currently we have the machines which have an integrated meibography along with the other dry eye modules, which can be used to capture meibography. So this is a normal eyelid showing a normal meibomian glands. So you can see that from the lid margin up to the lower portion of the tarsal plate, we can see the meibomian glands. You can see the acini, you can see the ductules here. So what is commonly seen in a pathological case is a meibomian gland dropout on a meibography. So we do have an age-related meibomian gland dropout, which is considered to be physiological. So MGD workshop has proposed cutoff values. So those who are under 20 years, they should not have any dropouts if they are normal. And those who are above 20 years, they should have less than or equal to 25% dropout, which is considered as normal age-related dropout. Anything which is more than 25% should be considered as pathological. So the clinical significance of the meibomian gland dropout is that it helps us differentiate between a dry eye disease and a normal eye, especially if you have diagnosed this based on the clinical OSDI score. It also helps us differentiate between the aqueous deficient and the evaporative dry eye disease. So it's been seen that if you have a MEBO score of value of 3, it's about 50% sensitive and 65% specific for the meibomian gland disease. The meibomian gland dropout also correlates well with lipid layer thickness, the non-invasive tear breakup time, the ocular surface index, as well as the age. And hence, it can help us to monitor the disease progression, as well as can help us in some way the monitor the therapy of the treatment which has been instigated for the meibomian gland disease. Though there has not been a very good evidence, but it's seen that meibomian gland dropout does not predict very well the effectiveness of the therapy like latent heat goggles or warm compresses, and hence it may not be a good predictive biomarker. The meibomian gland dropout can be graded. There are a lot of scales which are available. So you could have a MEBO score, which you can see on the top screen, where it can be graded from grade 0 to grade 3, depending upon no gland loss, less than 1/3, 1/3 to 2/3, or more than 2/3. Or by a MEBO scale, where it can be graded from 0 to 4 degrees, depending upon the percentage loss. So if you have 0%, it's 0 degree. Degree 1, which is less than 25%. Degree 2 is between 25 to 50. 3 is 50 to 75%, and more than 75% is considered as a degree 4. So this is the clinical pictures of the meibography images. So you can see the left-hand top is the normal meibogram, where you can see that all the glands are normally oriented, and you can see that they are present, they are occupying the entire upper eyelid. As compared to the lower left image, where you can see that there is significant amount of shortening or dark areas that you see, which is about 25 to 50%, indicating about moderate loss. And the top right shows about 50 to 75% loss, where you can see significant amount of meibomian gland dropouts. And the image on the right hand bottom shows almost near total meibomian gland loss, indicating that there is a severe degree of meibomian gland disease in this patient. Besides the meibomian gland dropout, there are a lot of other morphologies that we see on the meibography. These are depicted here. So one can see the distortion of the glands, or one can see even the increased tortuosity, or one can see the hooking at the ends of the meibomian glands. There may be shortening of the glands, there may be tadpoling, or when there are increased area of losses, you can see the abnormal gaps. One can even see the glands to be thickened. So if you see the acinine structure to be very prominent, then these are the thickened glands, or one can see even a thin gland. So when you see the less intense thin down glands on the meibography, it is a thin gland. So these are some of the clinical pictures. So you can see the top left and the right show the areas of dropout as well as shortening of the meibomian glands in the lower lid and the upper lid. The picture in the middle on the left shows the thinning of the glands. So you can see that these glands are present, but they are probably more of the ghost meibomian glands. The picture on the left and down shows that there are presence of concretion. So these are the calcifix images that you can see with the lucent area, the dark areas around, indicating probably the accumulation of fluid and the calcium deposits. The picture on the bottom right is showing a lot of tortuous glands, more thickened glands, as well as you can see the hooking of the glands here. Now, we do not know the significance of these morphological features, but I think a continuous evolution of this technology will help us know better about these morphology in reference to the Meibomian gland disease. So, meibography alone may not be very diagnostic in all cases. So, the most important factor is the Meibomian gland dropout. However, when you see a low Meibomian gland dropout, this in combination with a poor tear breakup time, a poor gland expressibility, a poor lipid layer thickness can help us diagnose a Meibomian gland disease. It can also help in some of the other conditions. So it can help us differentiate between a chalazion and a sebaceous carcinoma. So a chalazion is seen as a localized, well-defined dark area where you would see in between the highly reflective dots, which are either the fatty granules or the calcific areas. Whereas in sebaceous carcinoma, you will see a poorly ill-defined hyper-reflective area, which may or may not have the nodular regions in the glands. It's also been used for a therapeutic basis. So Stephen Muskin has been using this technology for the probing of the Meibomian glands to open up the glands which are blocked and are not patent. So to conclude, it's a good diagnostic tool. However, its exact significance of all the features are still not clear. It can be a good documentation tool, especially if we need to explain the patient about the existence of Meibomian gland disease in their eyes. Its therapeutic significance is not conclusive, and Meibomian gland abnormality on meibography in presence of higher OSDI score, low expression of the gland or the altered expression, low NIBUT, low lipid layer can help us diagnose a Meibomian gland disease and would indicate the treatment. Thank you.